Hello there. Thank you for joining me. We have a beautiful swamp scene for you today, and I know you can't think of a swamp scene as being beautiful, but I promise you this one is. Let's just go right to the palette and get started. First, let me tell you though, the name of it's Nature's Own, and as the painting progresses, you'll see why we've named it that. So let's go to the palette now. Let's put out a puddle of Snow White and Antique Gold. Okay, let's go to the canvas now and wet it. We're going to wet the entire sky area in the swamp, and we're going to wet the entire water area. As you follow along, you'll see exactly what's happening here. This area that I'm coating now is your sky. There's a log in the middle, an old dead log floating in the water. Well, it's so large it's not really floating, it's kind of stationary. And this is the water underneath it. Let me blot a little of that water off and we're ready to go. Okay, now we're going back to the palette and we're going to load the brush with the mixtures that I put out. What we're doing is we're tinting white with antique gold. We're going to begin here right above the log and work upward. That's a branch on the log right there. We'll go ahead and catch that. Work upward. This is water. This area we're working in now is water. Okay, can you see the tracing of the bird on the canvas? Now I'm going to ease across that bird very gently. I don't want to lose that tracing if I can save it. Save myself a lot of problems as the painting progresses. Added a little bit more antique gold to the mixture. I'm going to catch both upper corners now. Across the middle and the corners. See, we already have our sky coated. Okay, we're going to drop down and coat the water. Still working with antique gold and snow white, just a tint. Okay, let's go back to the palette and let's put out some Boysenberry. And dark chocolate. Oh, squeeze out of there. Boysenberry and dark chocolate. What we want to do is add this color, this mixture, to both corners. Across the top, on over to the other side. Try to keep it from getting too straight, from your lines or your strokes from getting too straight. I'm going to dip down just a little bit here. Right behind the bird just a little bit. Okay, now if we put it in the sky, if we put a color in the sky, we are duty bound to do what? Add it to the water. We have no choice there. What you see in the sky will reflect in the water. Now I'm going to take a mop and gently soften these strokes just a little bit. But I want to keep in mind this is a swampy scene, so I wouldn't have real puffy clouds in this area, in this painting. Kind of the streaky, get more of a streaked look. Not the billowing clouds. Okay, let's lay the log in now. Let's use dark chocolate, ebony black. We're going to underpaint the log, and then we'll go back and add lichen to it. Now, you know what that is. I call it lichen. You might call it lichen. I don't really know, but in the South we call it lichen. Just go to a larger brush, and this is a bristle brush. I'm working in a dry area, and I want to push the paint down in the teeth of the canvas, so I've gone to a brush that'll do my work for me. And notice that at times I pick up a little more of the black, at times I pick up a little more of the chocolate. That keeps the log from having a flat look. It gives it a little bit of texture. Don't worry if it looks like that you're kind of streaking your water, because you're going to put a reflection there. You're going to need it anyway. I'm going to ease right up to this sky, and I'm going to try not to touch it yet because it's wet. And it's a possibility that this dark mixture will bleed upward. So I'm leaving a little narrow outline, unpainted. Even in the limb, I'm going to try to leave a little outline there so I won't have any bleeding problem. Seeping. All right, now while I'm working with those dark colors, I have to have reflections, wouldn't I? Let's go ahead and lay them in. Keep your paper towel handy to dry your brush very often, because your brush is picking up this wet paint underneath. And I'll show you what would happen. See if I just continue to see that it's getting softer and grayer. Well, you don't want that. You want a dark reflection. We don't want a gray one. So don't be stingy with your paint. Okay, now you have long reflections here. In the middle, you're going to have shorter reflections. Short, short, short. And we start with the longer ones again on this side. Now, I don't know if you can see how often I wipe that brush. I make about 2 swipes and then I stop and wipe that brush. And that's one thing we get in trouble with when we first start working with any medium. It doesn't matter what medium you're working with. It's not keeping your brush clean. Okay, now lay that brush aside and go back to the fan brush and do a little blending. But I'm going to be ever so careful in my blending, because if I put too much pressure on my brush, remember all this paint underneath is wet, so what will happen? All of that wet paint, light colored paint, will come forward and it'll make my reflections too soft. It'll mix with the paint, mix with these dark paints and make them too soft, and we sure don't want that. So I'm using a light touch. And here I turn the brush bristles to the horizontal position and pull back and forth to get the effect of shimmering water. I think we can get the liking on right now. Let's give it a try. Let's give it a try. Black forest green. Snow white. little dark chocolate. You ready? Are you ready? Okay, what did I use? The dark forest green, snow white to lighten, dark chocolate to take some of the brightness out of it. And I'm using a crooker. This is a 1/2-inch crooker. And it just kind of pats it on there for me. Okay, let's go right on up the branch now. Let's add another branch here. Remember, where it grows out of the log, it would have to be what? Thicker. Thicker in that area. Okay, let's fill in this area over here that I was so afraid to touch a while ago. Okay, let's finish our branch. You land these branches on too, you want to keep in mind that they are branches and they grow in they grow sort of in little angles rather than curves. And the twigs and things that you want to lay on, they would go in angles. They would be laid on in angles rather than curves. Okay, let's go back to the fan and start laying in some weeds. We're going to start with the dark mixture over the reflections. That was what? Ebony, black, and dark chocolate. Right on out through this area you want weeds. This whole area under the log will have weeds. All colors of weeds. Turn the brush to the vertical position and just go ahead and put some taller weeds here. Let's do some on the other side. Try not to stand them straight up. Let some lean a little bit this way, some lean a little bit that way. There's a bunch of this sort of work that we want to do. The messier this looks, the prettier this painting is. So we're going to be working on both sides, just back and forth, laying in colors and messy weeds. Okay, let's put some antique gold and boysenberry. Let's start getting some color laid in. And this is sort of like berries or something that's growing kind of wild that you see in the swampy areas, and it adds a great deal to this painting. In fact, sometimes we even put some blue and green ones in. Sometimes we get a little carried away. Let's see, Georgia clay and antique gold. How about a cattail? Add a little bit of white to that. Round them off a little bit at the bottom. Give them a dark side. Pat a little highlight here and there. We're in good shape. All right, let's get a few highlights in the water now. Snow White. Right on up to the log. Let them wiggle just a little bit so that your water doesn't look dead still. It's not rushing, but there might be a little breeze giving it just a little bit of a tilt, a little bit of a lilt. Okay, a little highlight now on the lichen. You notice that I pat this in so that I don't get a stiff look to it. If you get it a little too light, just take your dark paint and tap right back over it. Place a little bit here and there. And let's ease a little shadow right up under it. Push your shadow with ebony black. Now, if you don't like the effect that you've gotten, you could always change it with this ebony black and dark chocolate. However, I think we're in business. I'm going to start working on the bird just a little bit. Dark forest green and white. They have beautiful bright green heads. Down to the neck. A little bit of antique gold on the top. Calico red and dark chocolate on the breast. Oh, let's go down a little farther there. Okay, back to, we already have our mixture. Let's just add some white to it. For the body, we want a soft gray. Oh, let's put a little more dark chocolate in that. White. Blend. White band. White around the tips of the wings. You'd have to have this, wouldn't he? Else how could he honk? How about an eye? Okay, let's lay a shadow now under this bony part of the wing there. And then pick up some white and soften outward. Then some more white on the, as we move away from the top of the wing. Okay, now this is going to look kind of strange, but let's catch the back wing, the top of the back wing. I added a little bit more dark chocolate to the gray mixture. Now here we go. You thin your paint just a little bit. Now for this I'm using a number 6 round. And that gives me the effect that I want on the tips of these wings. Looks like one great big old wing, doesn't it? Now watch. And these are just little touches where they are darker. Darker here, darker there. It needs to be a little bit thicker right here too, though. So they won't look like a skinny Mimi. And their feet, this is antique gold with a touch of Georgia clay. They're usually kind of tucked up under them. I think we could use a shadow here under the beak bill. I guess you call it a bill on a duck. It kind of curls up on the end. Okay, now let's go back to some more colors in the weeds. I wish you could see that water. That water is dirty. How in the world can we do anything with that dirty water? But we will. We'll give it a try. I'll lighten up this water just a little bit through here. Dress up this sky area just a little bit too. It looks a little bit blah. Let's put a little streak or two of light through it. I'll put a little bit more Georgia clay in this water down in here. And a bunch of twigs. And remember what I said? Angles, angles. Let's pull some back across. Just get a little movement in the water. And little dark squiggles, a squiggle or two in the water, to indicate that it is slightly, gently moving. Ever so easily. Add a little color here and there. I think that's about it for today. I've enjoyed being with you. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you.